My family moved around a lot. Now I know what we were running from. My family and I didn't live like most people. We never stayed in one place for too long, always moving from town to town, sometimes living deep in the woods for weeks at a time. I used to think it was fun, like an endless adventure, but I didn't know then. We weren't just moving around. We were running. We lived in an old RV, and at first I thought it was awesome. I mean, what 9-year-old wouldn't love the idea of living in a home on wheels? One week we'd be by the ocean in Oregon. The next we'd be up in the mountains of Montana. My twin sister Haley and I were always together, homeschooled by our parents, and as close as two siblings could be. It was just us, our parents, and the open road. But we never stayed in popular campgrounds, never parked where other families were hanging out, having barbecues or swimming in lakes. We always found these isolated places, tucked away in the woods or by empty fields, where we wouldn't see another soul for miles. Haley and I didn't question it much. Our parents were overprotective and didn't like crowds. They said they just wanted peace and quiet. But looking back, I should have noticed something was off, especially with how quickly they made us leave when we saw another person. My parents would pack us up and move without any explanation, not even stopping for bathroom breaks sometimes. The first real clue that something was wrong happened when we were in this small town in Northern California. We'd been parked in the forest near this place called Castle Rock for a few days, and Haley and I, being adventurous and mischievous, decided to sneak out one night. It was after midnight, and our parents had fallen asleep. Haley and I crept out through the small window of our RV, armed with nothing but a dim flashlight. The forest was dark and quiet, and the only sound was the crunch of leaves beneath our feet. We didn't go far at first, just far enough to feel like we were on some secret adventure, but then we saw something strange. At first I thought it was just the reflection of our flashlight, but no, there was a faint glow ahead of us, like a dim fire burning in the distance. We thought it was another camper at first, so we started walking toward it, curiosity getting the better of us, but the closer we got, the more unsettling it became. The light wasn't coming from a campfire. It was coming from a person, a woman. I'll never forget what she looked like. Her hair was long and tangled, some of it falling out in patches. Her skin was pale. No, not just pale, almost blue, like she was frozen or dead. She was wearing this old, torn hospital gown, and when she saw us, she started walking toward us with her arms outstretched. I remember my heart pounding in my chest. Haley grabbed my hand, squeezing it so tight it hurt. The woman was mumbling something, but it was hard to understand, like her mouth wasn't working properly. Ma, she groaned. It was enough to snap me out of my frozen state. Without saying a word, I yanked Haley's arm and we took off, running back to the RV as fast as our legs would carry us. My heart was racing, and I felt like that strange woman was right behind us the whole way. By some miracle, we got back into the RV without waking our parents. We didn't sleep much that night, too terrified to close our eyes. The next morning, things got even weirder. When we stepped outside, the small campfire we had left the night before was completely destroyed. Our chairs, the cans of food we'd left on the picnic table, even the rocks we used to draw with chalk. It was all scattered everywhere. It looked like someone had torn through our camp, but it wasn't just a random mess. It felt deliberate, like whoever did it wanted to send a message. Then we saw it. Written in black charcoal on the back of our RV were the words, "You can't run forever." I felt sick. Haley looked at me with wide, terrified eyes, but we didn't say anything. We were too scared to tell our parents what we had seen or what had happened. Would they even believe us? Later that day, my parents packed us up quickly, not saying much. My dad drove for hours, not stopping for anything, while my mom whispered to him in the front seat. They didn't think we could hear, but I caught bits and pieces of their conversation. "She's getting too close again," my mom said quietly. "We have to keep moving." I didn't know who she was talking about at the time, but I would soon find out. So that night, after driving for what felt like forever, my parents took us to a small diner on the outskirts of some town in Nevada. It was empty, and for a moment, it felt like everything was normal again. I even ordered a root beer float and a cheeseburger, excited for something other than camp food. But as soon as someone else walked into the diner, a man in a trucker hat, my parents stiffened. Without a word, my mom grabbed our hands and we left, abandoning our half-eaten meals. Back in the RV, I couldn't hold it in anymore. Why do we always leave when people show up? Why are we always running? My mom sighed deeply, sitting down next to me and Haley. She looked tired, like she was carrying a weight too heavy for her shoulders. "You're old enough to know the truth now," she said said softly. I held my breath. This was it, the truth. She told us about something that had happened when we were really young, just 4 years old. We were in a field somewhere in Oregon, playing like normal kids do, when a man approached us. He was big, wearing camouflage, and he didn't seem threatening at first. But when he knelt down to our level, something felt off. He asked us our names, and like any innocent kid, I answered without thinking. I'm Jake, and this is my sister Haley. We're 4 years old. My mom's voice cracked as she continued. That man tried to take you both. He grabbed your hands and started leading you away. Your dad and I, we just barely got to you in time. If we hadn't, she trailed off, her eyes watery. We've been running ever since, for a long time. That was the end of it. I thought that man was the reason we were always running, always hiding. But as Haley and I got older, we started noticing more things. The strange woman in the woods wasn't just a one-time thing. We would see her everywhere we went, sometimes standing on the side of the road as we drove by, other times lingering just beyond the glow of our campfire, always watching, always reaching out for us. She never said anything more than that garbled moo-boo-boo sound, but it haunted me. Who was she? Why was she following us? It all came to a head the day before our 15th birthday. We were parked in the middle of nowhere again, this time in Utah, when Haley and I discovered something. Our parents had gone into town to pick up supplies, and we were left alone in the RV for a few hours. Haley was rummaging around in the front seat when she found it, a small beat-up box hidden beneath the driver's seat. Inside were papers, birth certificates, hospital records. At first I thought it was just old paperwork, but then I saw the names, Jake and Haley Williams. But our last name wasn't Williams, it was Reed. Confused, I picked up another document, a newspaper clipping from a small town in Oregon dated a few days after our birth. Twin infants, missing from hospital, search underway. My heart sank. I looked at Haley, her face pale, her hands trembling as she pulled out another piece of paper. Mother of missing twins found dead in hospital, killed after giving birth. There was a picture of a woman, smiling, with her newborn babies in her arms. The woman looked familiar, too familiar. My breath caught in my throat as I realized why. It was her, the woman who had been following us all these years, the one in the hospital gown, the one who never stopped watching us. She was our real mother. The truth hit me like a ton of bricks. We weren't just running from some stranger, we were running from the truth. My parents, no, the people who had raised us, weren't our real parents. They had taken us, stolen us from the hospital after our mother was murdered. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. Everything I had ever known felt like a lie. Just then we heard a knock on the RV door. Haley and I froze, staring at each other in disbelief. Slowly we opened the door. There she was, the woman in the hospital gown, standing right in front of us. But this time she looked different, softer, less decayed. Her eyes were sad but full of love. "Ma, ba," she whispered again, reaching out to us. I finally understood. She wasn't saying ma, ba. She was saying my baby. Haley stepped forward first, tears streaming down her face. "Mom," she whispered, her voice shaky. The woman nodded, her bony hand reaching out to touch Haley's cheek. I followed, my heart pounding, but I couldn't stop the tears either. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was looking into the face of my real mother. She pointed toward the horizon, toward the town in the distance, and then she disappeared into the night. That night, Haley and I made the hardest decision of our lives. We took what we had found, the papers, the clippings, and we walked into town. We told the sheriff everything. DNA tests confirmed it. We were the missing twins. The next day, my parents, no, the people who raised us, were arrested. They had taken us, hidden us, and kept us on the run for nearly 15 years. But the real shock came when we were flown back to Oregon. Waiting for us at the airport was a man we had never met but who felt like a stranger and family all at once. Our father. He cried when he saw us. But Haley and I, we couldn't. We were too numb, too confused to process everything. It took time to adjust to our new life, to this new reality. But through it all, we never forgot the woman in the hospital gown, the mother who had watched over us all those years. Even now, sometimes, when the night is quiet and the wind is still, I think I can hear her soft voice whispering in the dark.